Halloween masks, gangsters, guns. These are the typical elements used in every great heist movie. What if I told you that most of the movies you love were modeled after a true story? On a cold January night in 1950, the perfect crime was carried out. With limited physical evidence and no leads, the FBI and local authorities were baffled at how over $2 million could be stolen from a Brinks bank. Who were involved? How many culprits? With the level of sophistication, this had to be an inside job. Or was it? It would take nearly 6 years to solve one of America's greatest mysteries and the largest bank robbery in history at that time. On the evening of January 17th, a 911 call was transmitted to local authorities. The Brinks Bank, located in Boston, Massachusetts, had just been robbed. The 5 employees working that night were ambushed. They were tied up, had their mouths covered with tape, and were forced to lie down face first, all while being held at gunpoint. The bank robbers, dressed like Brinks employees, wore pea coats, chauffeur hats, Halloween masks to cover their faces, and had rubber-soled shoes to muffle their footsteps. The victims testified the robbers didn't have much conversation amongst each other and seemed to know the premises extremely well. The robbers had keys and were able to swiftly move from room to room. They filled several burlap sacks with cash, checks, and other securities, all valued at over $2 million. After cleaning out most of the bank, the robbers left the building and fled the scene in a getaway truck parked nearby. With only 3 clues left behind at the crime scene, the FBI began stirring things up fairly quickly. Local gangs and hoodlums were being picked up and questioned. Casinos and underground gambling centers were being raided. Pressure was being put on the community at large to obtain information. Despite the pressure, authorities were getting nowhere with the case. A few months later, local authorities found pieces of a truck at a dump in Stoughton, matching the description of a truck that was parked by the bank on the night of the robbery. The eyewitness described a Ford stake-body truck suspiciously parked at the bank at approximately the same time that the robbery took place. The truck pieces had been cut up, smashed, and disposed of in fiber bags. While the truck evidence did not lead to any further information, 2 suspects gained extra attention due to how close they lived to the dump. Most of the initial suspects had alibis, placing them elsewhere at the time of the crime. However, there were a few individuals that the authorities wanted to focus on due to the nature of the crime and the precision involved. As the FBI continued questioning known criminals, informants began circulating a few names of individuals taking credit for the crime. The FBI followed up on rumors that a known criminal mastermind named Anthony Pino was involved in the planning of the robbery. Pino had a weak alibi, but with no strong evidence and without a confession, the FBI couldn't bring charges to Pino. Elsewhere, another suspect named Joseph O'Keefe found himself in legal trouble. Legal costs began piling on, and O'Keefe found himself falling deeper into debt. As he fought his case, he began reaching out to some of his buddies, asking for his cut of the take. Upset with the refusal of payment, O'Keefe wrote threatening letters to his alleged accomplices. Help was offered, but O'Keefe was unsatisfied. After serving his time, O'Keefe returned to Boston and yet again found himself in legal trouble. This time, while free on bail, O'Keefe personally visited his buddies to demand more money. It was rumored that O'Keefe threatened to spill the beans on the robbery case if financial assistance wasn't provided. Growing angry with this revelation, Pino hired a hitman to assassinate O'Keefe. The assassination attempt was unsuccessful as O'Keefe survived the hit. Back in custody, O'Keefe once again began writing letters to his cohorts demanding money for his legal bills. His demands fell on deaf ears as his accomplices knew that O'Keefe didn't have many options. He could spend many years in prison on gun possession charges, or would most likely live a life on the run as the bounty for his life was still lingering. They also believed that he would not confess, as he would be implicated in the robbery. As a surprise to many, O'Keefe buckled under the realization that his days were numbered. On January 6, 1956, nearly 6 years after the initial crime, O'Keefe gave a full confession to the FBI. O'Keefe gave up all of his accomplices and explained at length the role that each played. He stated that each person was recruited according to their strengths. He identified Pino as the mastermind, the individual behind the sophisticated plan. He explained how they cased out the bank for 2 years, observing personnel movement patterns, and learned all of the conditions that would yield a great opportunity. They broke into the bank on several occasions to steal lock cylinders, blueprints, and burglar alarm records. After having keys made and blueprints copied, they carefully put them back and awaited the perfect opportunity to make their move. O'Keefe recounted 6 separate occasions where they attempted to go through with the plan but backed out due to changing conditions. The night of the robbery, they used the keys to gain access to the building and snuck up on the Brinks employees who were on the 2nd floor of the building. They tied each up with rope and covered their mouths with tape. They looted the bank, taking everything they could. Once all of the money was taken, they exited the building and jumped into a nearby Ford truck. The truck was driven to the parents' home of one of the robbers in Roxbury. At the home, they began counting the money and splitting up the spoils. They agreed that they wouldn't spend any of the money for 6 years, which is when the statute of limitations for the case would end. Each took a small cut, and a large portion was stashed. O'Keefe explained that some of the accomplices took more than what they were supposed to, and shortchanged his take. He also stated that against his wishes, the truck was cut up and disposed of in the dump located near his home. Growing frustrated with his team and their lack of loyalty, O'Keefe believed that confessing to the crime would be the perfect revenge. In the following weeks, warrants were issued for the arrest of the 11 individuals involved in the Brinks robbery. With 1 deceased and 2 on the run, all of the others were quickly captured. The remaining 2 individuals were rounded up in a raid taking place 5 months later. All those involved were charged with conspiracy to commit theft of government property, robbery of government property, and bank robbery by force and violence and by intimidation. With indictments in place, trial was set to begin, with O'Keefe as the lead witness. On October 9, 1956, all were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. This case remains one of the most famous cases in FBI history. It was dubbed the perfect crime, the fabulous Brinks robbery. If not for greed, distrust, and vengeance, they may have gotten away with it. But in the end, justice always prevails. If this is your first time tuning in, drop a like and consider subscribing. Don't forget to check out the other videos in the channel. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching.